testimony from the Newman trial, is that correct? And in the question,
Ms. Citron, you have to answer yes or no because
Yes.
the court has to hear your response.
Yes.
and again, you were asked in that case, as you were in this case, about what Andrea said in regards to whether or not she was interested in Mr. Newman if she was not married. Is that right?
Correct.
And after having refreshed your memory with that transcript, do you recall what you said?
Maybe if she was not married, she would have been interested. However, she loved her husband and was not interested.
So your testimony.
That is what she said. But I could also tell she was lying.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. What's the objection?
Yeah. Objection, she cannot state her opinion as to whether or not a witness was not telling the truth, it was not responsive to the.
All right. I will sustain the objection and have it removed. That last response was non-responsive to your question. Next question, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Judge. Andrea told you about it, that her boss had professed his love to her, right?
Yes.
Did she ever say that she professed her love back to her boss?
No, I was more focused on what was going on with her and Rusty, so we immediately got back to Rusty.
Did she tell you she had any romantic feelings for her boss?
Again, if she had not been married, I asked her if she thought he was good looking. She said he's dark and professional. But romantic feelings, I don't recall that, no.
Did she tell you she had any type of sexual relations with her boss?
No, but what did happen is I asked her point blank if something had already happened between her and her boss. And I could tell that she was
I'm not
lying to me when she said no.
One second. Hold on. We're going to have some control. Ms. Citron, what I need you to do, you can explain answers if they need to be explained, but I need you to listen to the lawyer, respond to his question. All right. Next question.
Okay. Ms. Citron, I'll tell you, your subjective belief of what you thought is not what I'm asking.
Objection,
What?
Your Honor. I would ask that counsel ask questions.
I'm going to sustain that objection, Mr. Morgan. I will direct that you ask a question, and she will respond.
What did she say? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, will you repeat the
About-
first question?
You asked her, had anything already happened? What did she say? Yes or no?
After hesitating and looking away from me, she said no.
Okay. And you were someone that y'all shared the most intimate details of your sex lives with one another, right?
She has never told me anything about her sex life with Rusty.
You were asked in the interview with Detective Thompson about Andrea's morals and ethics. Is that right?
About her morals and
Morals
ethics.
and ethics.
I don't recall, but maybe you'll refresh my memory. Okay.
Do you recall what you said when asked about Andrea's morals and ethics?
And I object, Your Honor. I believe her answer was, I don't recall whether or not the detective asked.
Okay. I didn't hear her response because her voice was feigning a little bit. I couldn't hear the response. You may be correct, Ms. Hill. I'm not saying you're not. Let me just do this. Ma'am, if you could, I'm having some difficulty hearing some of your responses.
Okay.
Can you just give that last response on the record because I couldn't hear it?
Okay. Would you go ahead and say what you were asking?
If you don't remember, that's fine. But do you recall being asked a question about Andrea's morals and ethics and your opinion of those?
I don't recall, but maybe you could refresh my memory, is what I said.
If you don't recall, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you recall, go ahead, do you recall saying that Andrea had high morals and ethics and you did not?
Objection, Your Honor. I think she just said she didn't recall.
Well, I'm trying to refresh your memory. She asked me
Well,
to.
that's not the proper way to refresh her memory.
All right, lawyers. Let me do this. I'm going to listen to everyone.
Yes, Judge.
I'm going to listen to the objections, no matter how loud they are to me.
Yes, Judge.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to overrule that objection. I will allow Mr. Morgan to ask a question. She's on cross. I will give him an opportunity to ask whatever question. If you think it's inappropriate, you may make an objection.
Yes, Judge.
You may ask your question.
Do you recall telling Detective Thompson that you believe Andrea had high morals and ethics and will not have an affair? On January 21st, 2000.
Well, let her answer the question, Ms. Morgan.
Did you say that?
Well, I know I was certainly hoping that.
Did you recall saying that? Answer
Are you
yes or
go-
no.
Are you going to let me expound, or do I just
No,
have to say
you
yes or
can
no?
certainly say
Well,
yes
hold
or
on,
no.
Hold on, lawyer, Mr. Boyd, excuse me. You may answer yes or no, you can explain your answer.
Okay.
If it needs to be explained. So answer his question, and then you may explain.
Okay. Yes.
You do remember it now.
In the months after Rusty's murder, I wanted to believe everything that Andrea told me. I tried to believe everything that she was telling me.
Now, this conversation on January 21st was after the September 1st meeting at Fuddruckers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The Halloween party. That was an annual occasion that Rusty and Andrea hosted, is that right?
No. My parents hosted it.
Okay, they were there.
They were there, yes.
And lots of children.
Yes.
And at that time, Sophia and Ian would have been 5 and 2, is that right? Your kids were there?
Yes, her kids were there.
And all the grown-ups and all the children in the costumes?
Yeah. Just
Approximately how many people?
Oh my gosh. At my parents' house, we maybe had 5 families. I don't recall.
5 families with children?
Mm-hmm.
And Rusty and Ian were dressed as Scooby-Doo characters.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Rusty said he had to dress like Fred to save his marriage, to dress like a cartoon character.
Mm-hmm.
And you said there was tension at the Halloween party with children? Or tension between Rusty and Andrea? Is that what you testified?
They were not talking a whole lot, the two of them, that I saw.
Okay. They're a couple with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at a Halloween party, and they're not talking a lot. Does that shock you?
I was talking to my husband.
And your parents were there as well, right?
Yes.
The birthday party at the lake.
The birthday party at the lake.
After the meeting at Fuddruckers, you taught, I believe, it's Sophia's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
You and your husband were there,
Yes.
and your 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And how old were they?
My children, it's 2010. My son right now is 8.5, almost 9, and my daughter's turning 6. So
How many other people were there at the party?
a lot of people, but there always were a lot of people.
And Rusty is in the boat taking people out on rides.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe the boat? Was it a pontoon boat, ski boat?
Like a ski boat.
A ski boat could hold 6 people. Do you remember it was inboard, outboard, whether you could sit on the back or whether it had a motor?
It was an outboard.
Okay. And so there's a limited number of people who could ride on the boat at any given time.
That's right. Just like always, to be honest.
And there's a house there where Andrea lives.
Mm-hmm.
Rusty's out giving people rides.
Mm-hmm. As always.
And
However,
where
the
were
timing,
Sophia?
it was the timing that was different. Yes, it was always shuffling. I know where you're going. You're asking me, were they always shuffling people and switching people and so forth? Yes, of course, but it was always like that. But he always waited till the end of the party. My thoughts on that as to why he waited to the end of the party in previous years was potentially a gas situation. Maybe it was because he didn't like the boat getting messed up. Everyone had to take off their shoes, etc. But on this particular instant, it was notably different. So much so that he did not want to even pull the boat in to speak with Andrea when Andrea was trying to tell him that my family needed a life jacket. So much so that I dove into the water to swim out to the boat to get the life jacket. The situation was much different between the two of them that day versus other birthday parties.
Because he was taking people out on the lake all day long.
Rusty was the kind of guy that was always happy, always had the biggest smile on his face, and that day, it was different.
Did you?
It was different.
Let her finish. Still trying to give you a break. It's okay if you need a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a break. Step into the jury room. We're going to take a few-minute break. All rise.
All right, the judge is taking a break. This is 11 Alive's coverage of the trial of Andrea Sneiderman, and Shayna Citron has been on the stand over the last 90 minutes. This is our second break that we have had. Judge Adams stepping away from the bench now, and Ms. Citron remaining in the witness chair. It has been a very emotional rendering for her this morning, talking about Rusty Sneiderman at a party on Lake Oconee, and that Rusty was in a much different mood than what she had been accustomed to seeing him in.
That's what she says. I note she's sitting in the chair, not even getting up to take a break, composing herself, so apparently this is having a lot of impact on her.
What do you make of that, of just sitting there? Do you see witnesses that do that?
Usually the prosecution goes up and hands them a tissue, even though there's a box in front of her. Everybody else is milling around. It's kind of interesting. They're just all leaving her alone and letting her sit there and compose herself. But it may be because she doesn't want to get up and have to walk past the Sneiderman family.
We are taking a look at Andrea Sneiderman, who is smiling and engaging some of her friends and family with her back to Shayna Citron. And
sending out tweets, it looks like, from her cell phone just a moment ago.
Oftentimes in these trials like this, they are defined by what is said, but in this unusual case where there's so much emotion and so many sidebars, what is not being said right now seems to speak quite loudly.
It does. A lot of times things that you can't see on TV, but if you're in the courtroom you can just feel it. This may be a very powerful moment for the prosecution, actually. The defense is trying to score points, but Ms. Citron's so emotional that I'm not sure how far the defense is getting right now.
Can you talk a little bit about the prosecution's lilt through all of this? I mean, we're hearing some objections to the line of questioning from J. Tom Morgan, but aside from that, this is their period to sort of sit by and to assess the words from Shayna Citron.
From a strategic standpoint, one of the things you don't want to do as a prosecutor is rescue your witness too much. If it's going over the top, you'll object, but you just have to let them get the brunt of it sometimes, and you prepare them for that ahead of time. That's part of the
It's kind of
pre-trial
like a
prep.
bullfighter, right? Just getting out of the way.
You just sometimes you just got to let them take whatever's going to happen to them. Ms. Citron certainly knew that she was going to get grilled by the defense, and she's dealing with it the best she can, apparently. And the prosecution, to their credit, is just sitting back and saying, "Let it happen," and that's all you can do.
We want to encourage you to submit questions for Kelly Burke, former district attorney from Houston County and practicing lawyer. If you have any questions for him, feel free to submit them to me via email, jhullinger, Hullinger, at 11alive.com. Or you can also reach out via Twitter, and that is at 11Hullinger. And one woman from Florida said, you know, Jeff, when you give out those addresses, please do them much slower. So I will slow down again, at 11Hullinger, Hullinger.
Or listen faster.
Yeah. Too many years covering sporting events where the action goes by very quickly, and if you don't speak quickly, you'll miss out. But we're certainly not missing out on our coverage here, as we will stay with you through the duration of the trial. And Judge Gregory A. Adams back on the bench, and we resume with Shayna Citron.
Ms. Citron, are you ready to continue? Okay. Morgan, are you ready to continue?
Yes, Judge.
Where's my court report here?
Okay.
Let me get my court report. All right, Kelly, I was looking for you. We're good. No problem, we're good. And Ms. Citron, are you ready to continue? All right. I just need you have to answer the lawyer's questions. All right. Bring them in.
Every time I'm moving your water because it's directly in my. You can get it. Yes, April, no. I gave it April from it.
Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Technically, you can be seated in any seat. There's technically no assigned seats. I know we're all creatures of habit. We want to sit in the same seat, but you can sit anywhere you want to sit. So come on in, just make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. I always tell ladies and gentlemen, if you want to sit on this end, come out first. Sit on that end, come out second. That way you don't have to climb over anyone. But you can sit in any seat. Just make yourself comfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, every now and then I got to take a break, but don't draw any emphasis from any breaks that I take, one way or the other. All right. Y'all can be seated. Mr. Morgan, you can
Thank you,
proceed.
Ms. Citron, again, going back to your previous testimony, that you said, were you able to observe Rusty that entire day? Were you in the boat with him?
The entire day, no.
And there were other common friends of yours and Andrea's at the birthday party, right?
Yes.
And Andrea Lippman was there and can make the same observations as you, right?
Objection as to what Andrea Lippman could make.
I'm going to sustain that objection. You may want to rephrase that question.
Was Andrea Lippman present? Did
I-
you recall her being?
I do not recall. It is possible, of course. I'm sure she was there. I do not recall meeting her until after Rusty was murdered. It's very possible we met, but I was not I do not recall that. It's very possible, though.
Well, you're going back to the 18th, and I may have misunderstood. You testified under direct examination that you were in the car when you received the phone call,
That is correct.
and you were using your GPS.
That is correct.
Have you told anyone else that you were in the spot when you received the phone call?
Yes.
Could you be both places at once, in the car and in the spot?
I'm sorry, on the spot. What? I'm sorry, will you?
Have you told anyone else that when you received the phone call from Andrea that you were not in the car, but you were actually inside the spot?
Oh, no. No. Now, be clear. When I first received the phone call from Andrea Sneiderman, I was in the car. I then later received a phone call from Andrea Lippman from Andrea's phone, I believe. But I did not speak to Andrea Sneiderman at all that day until getting to her house that night. It was Andrea Lippman who told me that Rusty had been killed.
Okay.
And I had never met her before, or I certainly do not recall meeting her, and she was the one who told me while I was at the spa that Rusty had in fact died.
So, but Andrea Sneiderman called you while you were in the car.
Andrea Sneiderman called me while in the car and told me that he had been shot. It was Andrea Lippman who told me that in fact he had died.
Okay. The conversation that you had with Andrea Sneiderman about her phone call with him, do you
Yes.
recall when that was?
No, I really do not.
Well,
The exact day, is that what you're asking me?
okay. Was it before or after her trip to Florida?
I'm sure it was before.
And why are you sure?
Why am I sure? Because I recall being in my kitchen. I recall being at the exact point where I was in my kitchen during the phone call conversation after she got back from Florida. I don't think I saw her until maybe a day after she got back from Florida, or something similar to a day, maybe 2 days after Florida. I was at her house after speaking. I was at her house while speaking with her after she returned from Florida. This was a phone call conversation.
Okay. You don't have any recollection today, so we can check the phone records, is that right? You don't know approximately when this was? The phone call that you said she told you about, she had called him.
Correct. I have not checked my phone records.
Was it during the meeting the two of you had together after her trip to Florida where she told you about the sketch list like Kimmy's house?
I'm sure it was.
Okay. And her trip to Florida was to celebrate her anniversary.
Yes.
You recall when her anniversary was?
The 30th of December.
And you said it was a couple of days after she got back.
Or a day. Could have been the 31st. I don't recall.
Do you remember it was on New Year's Eve?
Honestly, I do not recall. I remember we were supposed to have a party at our house and we canceled it because of Rusty's death.
But there was that conversation, and that was the first time she told you the sketch looked like Kimmy's eyes. Is that correct?
I think that's yes. Hmm. However, there were discussions about the sketch previously to that.
She also told you about the email she had received from Kimmy with an attachment, correct?
At that same meeting, yes.
That was the same meeting that she told you. And it was at that meeting that she said she suspected you.
It was at that meeting that she suspected me? No. She told me on the phone previous to that she called him to ask him if he had anything to do with it. And then she showed me an email from him
All right. And
about that.
And the email was after the 28th.
There's two separate emails that she showed me.
Okay. Did you show those to the police? Did you tell the police about them?
I had not. Did I? What?
Okay. Well, let's deal with those emails. You're bringing them up now. Let's talk about them. Did she show you an email from Kimmy
Yes, two.
regarding the murder?
One said, I did not, or no, I didn't, or something like that.
That was an email.
That was an email.
And she showed you that.
Yes, she did, on her phone.
Did you tell the state that?
I don't know. Did
You
they
didn't think
ask?
that was important?
I don't know. Did they ask me that?
Oh, they had to ask you first?
I don't know. I told,
Miss,
oh, no, I
Go
don't
ahead.
know.
go ahead. You can explain.
I don't know. I told the police everything that I recalled at that moment in time.
Okay.
I believe I did tell them about the Bruno Mars thing.
About what?
The Bruno Mars.
I'm sorry.
Email.
What is that?
That's the song that
Oh,
me
I'm
sent
sorry.
her.
The song on the email.
Yes.
And you said Bruno Mars?
Mars was the composer of the song that he sent her.
Go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
Okay. And again, that was sometime after December 31st, 2010.
What was?
The email with the Bruno Mars.
No, he sent her that email while she was in Florida. And when we were discussing it, I asked her if she showed that to the police. I asked her if she told the police. And again, she said, I'm afraid for what that would mean for me and my family.
That discussion was after December 31st, right? After she got back from Florida?
Whenever she got back from Florida, again, I do not recall the date.
Okay. But you recall she was at Florida on her anniversary of December 3rd?
To celebrate her anniversary. I don't know if she was there on her anniversary or not. I don't know that.
Are you aware she went to the police on January 4th?
On January 4th?
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
So shortly after your discussion, she went to the police department.
Mhm.
Well, let's go back and let me ask you about some of the things you have told the police. Yesterday, you testified under direct. Correct me if I'm wrong. Andrea has checked out of this marriage, and that when she talked about Rusty, her eyes went dark, and when she talked about her boss, they sparkled.
Mhm.
Do eyes sparkle? Is this some out of Harlequin romance novel? I mean, they sparkle? Are mine sparkling?
Your Honor, I'm objecting to the compound questions. I'm
I'm
asking.
I'll break them up.
Hold on, Mr. Morgan, let me rule on your objection. I know you want to cut me off, but
No.
don't. I'm going to sustain the objection. You can ask a direct question, but don't answer a compound question. You may answer the question if you can, ma'am.
Do eyes sparkle, Citron?
They certainly glow.
Oh, they do, okay. And they change to dark?
They get cold also is what I said. Mhm.
Now, did you think that was
In my
important
opinion.
enough to
Hold on,
tell?
hold on, 1 second.
I'm sorry, I
She
didn't.
was still talking. Go ahead.
In my opinion, they do. Because you can tell a difference in the way eyes look.
Okay. Did you think that was important to tell Detective Thompson on January 21st, 2006?
Here's what happened.
Yes or no, and then you can explain.
At that exact moment in time, like I said before, no, and here's the reason why. Like I was trying to say earlier, the months after Rusty's murder, I wanted so deeply to believe what Andrea was telling me. I wanted to believe in her. I supported her. And when I was there with her, she started telling me certain things. I had found out about the cruise since we had previously discussed that she had not had sex with her husband in quite some time. I specifically asked her if she and Rusty had had sex on the cruise, and she told me yes. In addition to that, she was telling all of us a lot of different things. I was led to believe,
Just your conversations with Andrea Sneiderman, not what other people told you.
I was led to believe by Andrea Sneiderman that they had patched things up, that things were going well again.
Now,
After my interview with the police in February, Andrea came out with a public statement about being shocked that it could be Hemi. And I thought to myself, how in the world could she be shocked when I told her to tell the police about her boss? And thinking back, when that public statement came out, I then thought back to all the things that we had talked about at that lunch. And then when it came out that Hemi's wife filed for a divorce because she suspected,
Objection is-
I'm going to sustain that objection.
Thank you, Judge.
because she I'm sorry.
Let's stop right. Time out.
I'm sorry.
Stop right there.
I'm sorry.
All right. I believe, at least what I'm hearing, you responded to his last question.
This is all in response to this last question.
Right now, I'm gonna
Okay.
go into other issues right now.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay. You were not present Andrea had the conversation with Detective Thompson and Sergeant Cordellino in her home on the 19th.
That is correct.
Now, you just told us that you did not tell Detective Thompson about the sparkle in the eyes and the dark eyes during that interview, right?
Because at that particular moment in time, I had not thought about it. Again, I did not start recalling that September 1st lunch in detail until after Andrea made her public statement in February.
Well, you told Detective Thompson about this September lunch.
Yes, but I did not go back and yes, I did tell him about that lunch.
You testified on February 23rd, February 24th, 2011, 2012, in the Hemingway trial, right?
I did.
And during the course of that trial, you never mentioned anything about the sparkle in the eyes and the dark eyes. Is that correct?
I was not asked. I was only asked a few questions.
Just a few questions. Have you had a chance to review your transcript? You're asked lengthy questions by both sides, right?
Well, not as long as this.
And different lawyers.
Different lawyers in a much different circumstance.
When did you first tell anybody about the sparkle in the eyes and the dark eyes? When did that conversation? When did you?
That night,
Which night?
September 1st, I went immediately to my mother's house after that. That was not in the evening. And
Let me rephrase my
No, let her,
Oh.
no.
Okay.
You can answer that question since you asked. Go ahead and finish.
I immediately told my mother that day, and then that night when my husband came home from work.
You told them about the sparkle in the eyes and the dark eyes?
I told them that she had checked out of her marriage. Her demeanor was so cold, and her eyes were so cold, it looked like she had checked out of her marriage. That is what I told them.
So you told them on September the 1st, 2010. You remember that vividly, but you don't bring that up to Detective Thompson on January 21st, do you? And you don't bring it up to this jury on February 20, not this jury, but a jury in this courtroom on February 23rd, do you? It just
There
comes
was a
up this.
lot of time in between.
Questions, I think there were 3 questions.
I understand. I'm gonna sustain the objection, Mr. Morgan. I'm gonna allow you to cross-examine, ask questions. But you have to get a witness opportunity to answer a particular question. And that was a compound question. You don't have to respond, but you ask the questions that you want, but individually.
Thank you, Judge. You just said you distinctly remember telling your mother and your husband September the 1st, 2010,
That is correct.
that Andrea checked out of her marriage and her cold demeanor.
Mhm.
You did not tell Detective Thompson that on September 21st, 2010, did you?
I didn't speak with him in September.
Excuse me, getting my dates wrong. January 21st, 2011.
Correct.
You did not tell a jury in this
I
courtroom.
told them a lot of things.
I'm asking you, did you tell them that specific thing?
That specific thing, it was not something that came to mind at that moment in time, and I do not even recall thinking back to the coldness until she came out with her statement the next month.
I'm sorry. Detective Thompson asked you a lot of questions
Yes,
about
that's
the
right.
marriage between Andrea and Rusty during that interview.
Mhm.
Not once did you bring this up, did you?
Okay. I brought up a lot of things.
Please answer
Yes.
yes and no.
I suppose not.
And you were asked questions about the marriage between Andrea and Rusty on February 23rd and February 24th, and you never brought this up at that time.
Because I was told that things were getting better.
On February 23rd and 24th, after Rusty had died?
No. After Rusty had died, Andrea told me that they had been getting along, that they had sex on the cruise, and the cruise sort of helped them reconnect.
Now, you told us earlier that Andrea did not discuss her sex life with you.
I asked her, correct, excuse me, please don't twist. What I was talking about at that point was previously to me asking her directly, are you guys having sex? Previous to that conversation, we had never spoken about her sex life to my knowledge. I don't recall ever speaking with her about her and Rusty's sex life until that particular day in my car at GE. I asked her point blank if they were having sex, and she said no. Shayna, it has been a long time since we have had sex. There's too much fighting.
And you discussed your own sex life with her at that time, right?
I did,
Okay.
to some degree.
Now, when was the first time you told anyone in authority, police, district attorney's office, district attorney's investigator, about the checking out of the marriage and the sparkle gone, or the sparkle, or the dark in the eyes? First time.
I did not think it was necessary since Andrea told me she told
no, hold on,
the
Ms. Moore.
police
Go ahead and answer the
about
question.
her boss. I specifically asked her right after she spoke with the police officers if she had told them about her boss. She said, yes, I took it at that. My job was done.
Your Honor, that is not responsive to my question.
All right.
I would ask the witness.
It's noted. Next question.
I would ask the question again.
You may.
When was the first time district attorney's lawyer,
Oh,
anyone in authority, about
Is there any redirect?
There will be, Your Honor.
You may.
Well, no, I'm sorry, no redirect, but I would just
I mean,
ask